Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about itemization in Deadlock. I have a couple of friends who have started playing the game recently, and I think this is a question that's starting to come up for them. So if it's a question that's coming up for them, it's probably a question that's coming up for some of the other new people as well. So I figured I'd just make a video and kind of help as many people as I could all at once. As a reminder, if you're new here to the channel, I am not a professional player. I am only up in this Emissary 4, and there are certainly people who know more than me about this game. When I started this journey of trying to become a better player roughly a month ago, I was Seeker 2, and via a combination of hard work and admittedly some algorithm changes, I have been blessed by the Yoshi all the way up to Emissary 4. So I am feeling pretty good. My hope is that even though I'm like a mid-level player, I should be able to help some of the people that are in ranks below me. And hopefully, because I'm not playing at the literal highest level, some of the examples that I provide should be a little bit more grounded and relatable to people in the lower ranks. So you can watch it. You can let me know whether you think this was beneficial or not. Appreciate it. As a quick caveat before we get started, I'm going to say that if you are below like 50 games played, I would really not worry about this topic too much. I think you have other things that you're still learning, like what all of the heroes do, how to sort of play around them, how to use your stamina and move around efficiently, like knowing the layout of the map and where everything is and what the objectives are and when you should fight for them and when you shouldn't fight for them. You'll start to get a feel for that, and really at that rank, I think, or not rank, but at that level of experience, I would recommend just getting more games under your belt, because any kind of like macro item buying decision making is going to be predicated on knowledge that you just don't really have yet. So I think play like your first 50 games, learn a little bit about the characters and what they do, and then maybe come back to this. But that's your prerogative. I don't control you. You do what you want to do. So when it comes to items in Deadlock, I break them down into roughly 3 categories. Those are items that make you stronger, defensive items, and then problem solvers. To go into those deeper, I think items that make you stronger, like any item is going to make you stronger, but I'm specifically talking about things that amplify your damage or that are synergistic with your kit and make your character stronger at the things that they kind of already want to do. Defensive items, I'm talking specifically about things that help to mitigate some of the incoming damage that you'll be experiencing from the enemy team. And when I'm talking about problem solvers, I'm talking typically about like a category of active item that help you deal with particular situations or particular interactions over the course of a game, right? Of those 3, we're going to talk the least about items that make you stronger, because if you're new and you're looking at builds that are telling you to like build from left to right, 90% of those are items that make you stronger already. And you'll kind of be most familiar with that class of item and how they affect your specific character. Whereas defensive items and problem solvers are things that you could kind of build on any hero and will just make it much, much easier for you to play the game, right? So while we're not going to talk very much about items that make you stronger, there is a sort of subcategory there that I think is worth mentioning, and that's these healing reducing items. I think at this point there are enough sources of healing, either by like heroes that can just heal you outright, spirit vamp, bullet vamp, just a bunch of different ways that characters heal. And some characters, like say Victor, that are just, do you have healing reduction checks, that I think it's just worth knowing what your options are in this category. So I guess we could just very briefly go over them. Healbane, it's the only 1600 item here. It gives you some spirit power and it does apply healing reduction, but really I would argue the major reason that you buy Healbane is because you are a hero who has a significant amount of kill threat in that early to mid game. The reason being is that whenever you kill an enemy hero, it's going to give you a burst of healing like a 275. And so, you know, I'm on Shiv right now. He's got an execute. This is a particularly strong item on him because yes, he's going to be able to apply healing reduction to his targets, but really it's just nice that after you execute everybody, you get a boost of healing that you could then use to try to turn into, you know, potentially a second kill. From there, you have 2 options in the bullet camp and 2 options in the spirit camp. Toxic bullets, if you train somebody for long enough, then you will build up a bleed on them, and then while they're bleeding, they have a healing reduction. Crippling headshot, it amplifies your headshot damage, I believe. Landing a headshot on heroes will reduce their bullet and spirit resist and applies healing reduction. Okay, so it doesn't amp your headshot damage, but when you land a headshot, it does cripple them where it shreds resist and also mitigates some of the healing. Decay is a point and click dot. You just target somebody with it, and then while the dot is on them, it applies healing reduction. Spirit Burn is an item that after you do significant spirit damage, it will apply healing reduction to the target or the people that were hit. And then Inhibitor is something where if you shoot somebody, it will apply a damage penalty to that character and also a healing reduction. I think just knowing like what kind of items your character will want to build will help. I think by the mid to late game, you should have at least one instance of healing reduction. So if you are like a gun carry and you don't think that you could get a significant number of headshots, either because you're not quite at that level yet or because you're playing a character like Graves who literally just can't headshot people, then just buy Toxic Bullets as one of your 3k items. Conversely, if you're like a spirit character and you are one that doesn't particularly love building decay in the mid game, then just make sure that you have Spirit Burn as like a priority item in that mid to late game. Again, I think it's just really important that most characters have access to some kind of healing reduction. So just keep in mind these items and build the one that you think makes the most sense for your particular hero. All right, next we're going to talk about defensive items, and we're going to start just by talking about the very early game. I know that this looks like a lot of defensive items, but I promise you it's not actually that overwhelming. We're going to go through everything and kind of describe what it's for. The first class of item we're going to talk about are these sort of like early game sustain type items, these first four. And these are things that will provide healing to you while you're in lane. When you are laning and when you get particularly low on health, I think if you are coming from like a League of Legends background, you might be used to just like going back to base to heal up and then come back. But in this game, that's pretty bad. I mean, it's better than feeding a kill to the enemy for free. So like leave if you literally have to. But in general, you should have some source of healing to be able to sustain you in the lane. So it's just worth understanding what your various different options are. Of those, you have Healing Right, which is an active item that you can cast on yourself or a friend. It comes up every 70 seconds and it gives you a tremendous amount of health back. It's basically like a health potion from another game, but you get to use it every 70 seconds and it never gets consumed. It never like goes away, right? Conversely, you have Extra Regen, which is not the same as Healing Right. So Extra Regen will be active all the time. It'll give you +3 just flat health regen, and you'll get an additional 1 out of combat regen. The thing about Healing Right is that you activate it, you put it on yourself, and then it'll heal you over this period of time. But if you take even 1 damage from an enemy hero source, then the heal will fall off, right? And so because at this early point in the game, because it's going to give you 300 total HP regen, if a character way over there sees that you have Healing Right and they shoot you, even if the fall off damage is reduced to like 1 bullet damage, it'll still knock off your Healing Right. So somebody just having line of sight on you can deal quote unquote 300 damage just by denying you the Healing Right. And so while you're using Healing Right, it's particularly important to go off and like break some boxes or fight like a small camp, because again, the only thing that's going to knock the Healing Right off is damage from an enemy hero. It's not going to fall off from like punching a center sacrifice. It's not going to fall off from taking damage from jungle camps, right? So those are things that you can do while Healing Right is up, but you are committed to not being active in lane at that time, I would say. So that's just something to bear in mind between the two. When you're deciding between buying Healing Right and Extra Regen, sometimes it'll come down to like the types of damage that are coming in, right? So if you're getting poked at and you're taking small amounts of damage consistently, Extra Regen can help to mitigate that pretty well. If you are getting chunked down and you're getting lots of damage taken, then Healing Right can help deal with that, because you just have access to faster health once they get chunked, and typically things that deal more damage have longer cooldowns, so you can kind of get back in there. But that's kind of the dichotomy between those two. Our next 2 items are Restorative Shot and Melee Lifesteal. Restorative Shot is an interesting one. Basically, it is an item that will go on cooldown when you shoot, and whenever it's off cooldown, the next shot that you do will heal you for 50 if you target an enemy hero with it, and for 15 if you hit like a soul orb or a creep or anything of that kind, right? So this can be really good, right? But notice, like, when I shoot, it goes on cooldown over here, even if I hit nothing. So what this means is you have to play in a way where every single time it comes off cooldown, and you see this little icon here, you are specifically hitting an enemy hero to get the most out of it. So every 6 seconds, you have to stop what you're doing, not fire your gun, find an enemy hero, and shoot them to get the 50 every 6 seconds. And only then is it able to keep up really with the either passive healing regen of this item or the active healing regen of this item, right? If you're just getting like the 15 incidentally every 6 seconds from shooting creeps, or if you're missing shots whenever it comes off cooldown, then it can be particularly bad. So I would recommend, honestly, even if a build recommends it, I would recommend not building this item if you're new to the game, because even if you think that you can even if you think you're good enough to be able to hit somebody every 6 seconds, I think just adding that to your mental stack on top of a game where you're already learning it is just a bit too much, right? But it's important to understand what it does and how it works, just in case you see it. Side note, this item is really good on Graves because she literally can't miss with her beam. So she'll always get at least some value out of it. But if you're not playing Graves, then probably just don't buy this item, I think. Melee Lifesteal is an item that will give your next melee attack, it gives it the property to heal. Importantly, like, yes, it will proc when I do this, and yes, it'll proc on a charge punch, but this item, you'll find it mostly built either either on heroes that can guarantee a melee attack, like an Abrams who puts you into a wall and stuns you, or you'll find it on characters who have, like, melee attacks built into their kit, like Calico or like a Billy, or I think Silver has it as well, right? So if you have a spell that counts as a melee attack, this is often, okay. But other than that, I probably would not recommend that you get this item, at least not for sustaining in lane. So up next, we're going to talk about the remaining 800 cost items that they're not sustaining items. They don't help you get your health back, but they do help you play the lane occasionally. So Rebuttal is an 800 green item. It gives you -2 seconds to parry cooldown. It gives you melee resist. It gives you 75 bonus health, which really is 150 bonus health, because whenever you buy the item, you are not just getting the stats on the item, but you're also getting the 800 vitality investment, which would give you 75 bonus health. So overall, that's a 150 bonus health. And then whenever you successfully parry an enemy hero, you heal yourself for the damage parried, you return that damage to the target, and then you get a bonus damage buff, right? So basically, if you're playing into these lanes with enemy heroes that just want to parry you over and over and over, you buy Rebuttal and you basically solve the problem. If you parry, like, let's say a Billy even one time, you should just kill him, because again, you're reflecting the heavy melee back to him, you're healing for the amount, you're stunning him, and you're getting a damage buff. Like, the Billy should just die, and hopefully they'll back off on meleeing you so much at that point. But this is like am I playing into a melee comp? Let's just Rebuttal, right? Extra stamina. Some characters in this game are just stamina checks. The biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head is Warden. So Warden will throw a flask on you, it'll drain you of 1 stamina, and then he'll put the little cage on you that asks you to get out of it in a certain amount of time or get stunned. Or I guess it's a root, but he basically just poses the question, do you have enough stamina to get out of this? You have to buy extra stamina in a lane like that. You just have to. It's not negotiable. Fortunately, this item builds into things that a lot of characters want already. Namely, Kinetic Dash has been very powerful for a while now, and Stamina Mastery is also just quite good. So if you have to build this item, it builds into things that you probably want anyway. So it doesn't feel too bad. And then the last one I'll mention is Extra Health. It just provides 185 bonus health, which again, because it's a green item, when you buy it, you're also going to get the 75 bonus health here. So that is a total of, let's round and call it 250. I think it's like 260. That is particularly good. It is going to help more on if you're playing a character that starts with a particularly low health value. I think Mina has a low health value. I think Rim has a low health value. The reason why this helps so much is because since it's providing a flat health bonus, it helps those characters more as a percentage overall than if you were to buy this item on a character that's already tanky like an Abrams, right? So if you're dealing with a lot of damage and a lot of poking and a lot of just incoming stuff in lane, and you're playing a hero that just doesn't have a lot of health to begin with, sometimes buying extra health can just give you a little bit more wiggle room to actually operate in the lane. All right, so up next we're going to be talking about this 1600 class of items. These are still things that I would say that you're building in the laning phase. And it's also the phase where you're now building resistance to types of damage, so to bullet resist or spirit resist, right? Let's just go through the options. So Battle Vest and Enchanter's Emblem are very similar items, and Weapon Shielding and Spirit Shielding are very similar items. So long as we understand what they do, you can usually make a pretty good judgment about which one to build. So I'm going to just read all of them first, and then we'll go back and talk about the implications of them later on. Battle Vest gives you 18% bullet resist and 3 out of combat health regen. While you're above 65% health, you gain weapon damage and bonus fire rate. Enchanter's Emblem, again, very similar. It gives you 15% spirit resist and it gives you 2 out of combat regen. And while you are above 65% health, it gives you bonus spirit damage and cooldown reduction, right? Now, Weapon Shielding, it gives you some out of combat regen, but really the biggest thing is that it gives you a barrier every 45 seconds. When you take significant weapon damage from enemy heroes in a small time frame, it'll give you a barrier that is worth roughly 300 health. And then Spirit Shielding is the exact same thing. It gives you some out of combat regen. Every 45 seconds, if you take significant spirit damage, it'll give you a barrier that is worth roughly 300 health. So, if you are in a lane with a tremendous amount of burst damage, be it gun damage or spirit damage, then you probably want one of these shielding items, because the barrier that it provides you is going to be disproportionately powerful early on in the game when 300 health means more. So again, if I'm like laning into something like a Lady Geist who's constantly throwing out the ones, or like a Grey Talon who's also constantly throwing out the ones, Spirit Shielding is very valuable there, because that's a significant amount of burst damage, and then the 300 barrier, I'm going to get more value out of it early on, right? It'll just help me survive and be able to actually play the game. Whereas Battle Vest and Enchanter's Emblem, because they don't just provide barriers, but they actually provide resistances, they will typically scale better into the mid and late game, and you can sell them off later, making them better if they are appropriate for solving the problem that you're facing. So if you're just in a lane with 2 people that are shooting at you and they're shooting at you quite a bit, Battle Vest is going to be quite good, because it's going to give you some bullet resist and will just enable you to play there a little bit more. Typically, like, once they realize that you're building resistances for the types of damage they're harassing you with, they'll either move on to trying to bully your buddy, or if that's not an option, then they'll just fuck off and try to push the wave or whatnot. They'll deviate from there. So which one you want to build really, again, comes down to like, how consistent is the damage? Are they focusing you? Is it burst damage or is it persistent damage? And then what is the damage type? Now, I think some people will get caught up on the fact that Battle Vest is providing buffs for like weapon damage and fire rate, and the fact that Enchanter's Emblem is providing buffs to spirit power and ability cooldown reduction. I personally would not get too hung up on that. Like, yes, if you are like a spirit-based assassin, then Enchanter's Emblem is slightly more appealing to you, but it's only appealing if it actually solves the problem that you're facing in lane and lets you play the game. Ultimately, no matter what hero you're playing, they have some level of spirit scaling, and they have a gun. For sure, I know that. They have a gun. So don't get too caught up on like, oh, I need every single component of this item to benefit me, you know, in the biggest way. Just focus on like actually solving the problem, right? Is it burst damage? What kind is it? Is it persistent damage? What kind is it? And just buy the one that's appropriate for that. The last 1600 item, very, very strong, is Reactive Barrier. It does provide a 6% spirit resist, but what it's really going to do is it's going to provide you a barrier whenever you are hit by like a conventional crowd control. So if you're laning into somebody like a Bebop and they're hooking you a lot and you just don't have the reflexes to get out of it, or maybe you're just off that day, or maybe the Bebop's just really good, reactive barrier will help to, you know, anytime that you get caught out or CC'd, you're not just going to immediately die. You might die anyway, but reactive barrier will certainly help quite a bit. All right, up next is the 3200 items, and honestly, this is probably the simplest category. We have Metal Skin, Bullet Resilience, and Spirit Resilience. The resiliences are incredibly straightforward. Bullet Resilience gives you 30 bullet resilience, and when you are below 40% health, you gain additional bullet resist. Cool. Spirit Resilience. It gives you 30 Spirit Resist. When you are below 40% health, you gain additional Spirit Resist. Cool. You buy these when the enemy team has a disproportionate amount of one or the other, and if you are a character that has to be alive, like, I don't know, a Shiv or an Abrams, or, you know, a particularly tanky character, and they're kind of split down the middle, sometimes you're fine just buying both. These items are quite good. So, as you're entering the mid game, as you're kind of leaving the laning phase, you can just hit tab, look up at the top. If the entire enemy team is specking into spirit items, guess what? You just build Spirit Resilience. It's 3200. I promise you it will be worth it. Just get it. Metal Skin is particularly interesting. It gives you 15% bullet resist, but on a 24-second cooldown, it has an active that for the next 5 seconds, you're just immune to bullets. So if there are characters that have to shoot you for the bulk of their damage, you can just tell them to fuck off. Haze, Infernus, he can't get the stacks. Mina, she can't proc Love Bites. If we think about a character like Silver, Silver has to do damage to enemy heroes to be able to transform into the werewolf, right? Her 1 is a buff to her gun. Her 2 is a flippy kick that then buffs her gun. And the 3 is a bola that slows you down so that she can shoot you with a gun. So in order for her to transform, she has to shoot you with a gun. Just buy Metal Skin. She will not be able to transform if she finds you alone. It should help you deal with that character a little bit more. So Metal Skin can help if there are a lot of characters on the enemy team that do primarily gun damage, but importantly, you have to activate it. If you're new and you're coming from a game where you do not have quite a bit of active items and you're still adjusting, maybe skip this and just get Bullet Resilience, because it will help you more if you don't activate anything, right? But Metal Skin can solve quite a few issues if the game calls for it, right? Just try to keep that in mind. All right, up next we have the 6400 items, and there are quite a few here, but they're not actually that scary, I promise. Colossus. It gives you 300 bonus health, it gives you 15% base health, it gives you 15% weapon damage, and then it is an active item that you can use every 37 seconds that gives you bullet resist, spirit resist, and reduces the move and dash speed of enemies nearby. You also become really big. This is just a generic I am tanky now button that you can push before you go into fights. It can be good if you need to be big and tanky. Juggernaut. Juggernaut provides you slow resist, it gives you additional movement speed, some melee resist, and health regen. Enemies that shoot you have their fire rate slowed. This is particularly good in situations where you are dealing with quite a lot of slows from the enemy team, or if there are a lot of like gun carries that are fucking you up. The gun carries, they get their fire rate reduced, and then that can end up protecting more people on your team. But they kind of have to shoot you first, so I don't know. Mileage may vary, but Juggernaut can be good. Unstoppable. This is most similar to like BKB from Dota. That might mean nothing to you, so let me actually describe what that is. It has some debuff resist, it has some bonus health, but the biggest thing is the active. Every 65 seconds, you can push a button that just makes it so that they basically can't inflict negative status effects against you. They can't stun you, they can't silence you, they can't sleep you, they can't root you, they can't disarm you. Importantly, you can't push the button once you've already been CC'd. So if somebody stuns or sleeps you, you can't activate the button then, or you can't push the button then, but if you're running into these situations where like every time you run into a fight, they just, you know, they slowing hex you, they knock you down, they curse you, they silence you, you know, all of this type of stuff, just build Unstoppable and push it before you go into team fights, and you should be able to actually play the game. Plated Armor is an interesting one. It gives you some bonus health, and then it gives you a passive that has a % chance to reflect weapon damage when weapons are fired at you. So it says this is a 30% deflection percent and then a 50% on hit prevention percent. Importantly, this item does not give you bullet resistance, right? So from my understanding, this scales best when you already have like battle vest or when you have bullet resilience, but you can't like go an entire game not building any bullet resist and then buy plated armor and say, okay, the problem's solved, nobody can shoot me anymore. They can probably still kill you. You want to have bullet resist on top of plated armor, right? Importantly, this is a situation where metal skin would not be as good because, again, plated armor is a percent chance to reflect the guns that are being fired at you back to the enemy. If you pop metal skin, then you just don't take any bullet damage at all. So the enemy is not incentivized to shoot you. They'll just turn and look at somebody else, right? But again, plated armor will get a lot of value if they have a lot of gun carries and you already have either battle vest or bullet resilience. Preferably bullet resilience will probably end up selling battle vest later on. Spellbreaker. This is the fuck wizards item. It gives you 18% spirit resist, 25% debuff resist in every 9 seconds. The next instance of high spirit damage you take is significantly reduced. So depending on how long a fight goes, you can reduce 2 or 3 times, and it's really significant. You'll definitely feel it, especially if you already have some source of spirit resist, either from like Enchanter's Emblem or from Spirit Resilience. And then the last one is Witchmail. It's kind of similar, so it provides spirit resist, but it also gives you spirit power. Taking heavy hits of spirit damage from an enemy reduces a random ability cooldown. So this can be particularly good if you are if you're like a brawly type tank that will get a lot of mileage out of their abilities. Again, Shiv is on the screen. Then Witchmail can be quite good. It's just something to consider, but this is like a hybrid offensive defensive item. If you just wanted to shut down and reduce the magic damage by as much as possible, or the spirit damage, I suppose, then Spellbreaker is usually the go-to in that department. All right, up next we're going to talk about the problem-solving items, and I feel like I could potentially be missing a couple, so if any of the like higher level players think of something that I don't end up mentioning here, feel free to respond in the comments. I'll genuinely appreciate it. The first one, this is the only 1600 item on the list, and it's Slowing Hex. It's an active item. You can use it every 30 seconds. It slows movement of the enemy target, but importantly, it also silences all of their movement-based items and abilities. And I feel like that's not properly communicated from the name Slowing Hex. Like when I first thought about this item, I was like, oh, I cast it on people and then their movement speed is slowed. No. This is particularly good for catching characters like Mina and Pocket, who have abilities that just let them get out of jail free. If you cast this on Mina, she cannot teleport, right? So you buy 1600 and suddenly Mina is killable. This is a good item. You have to buy it against these characters. Late in the game, it'll upgrade into an item called Vortex Web, which is on a longer cooldown, so it goes up to 42 seconds. You target a location rather than a hero, and then it sucks everybody in, and then it gives them a move speed penalty. It applies Slowing Hex to everybody in an AoE. So that can be really good, but frankly, you typically don't have like multiple of these characters on an enemy team. You can, but the odds that you're going to catch like Mina and Pocket with the same Vortex Web are probably pretty low. Slowing Hex is a quick like 1600 investment. Boom, you solve the problem. Really, really good. Disarming Hex. This is again an item that you buy when like a heavily gun-based character is starting to run away with the game. So like if the enemy Haze is getting out of hand, the enemy Infernus is getting out of hand, the enemy Mina is getting out of hand, the enemy Silver is getting out of hand, anybody who has to do a tremendous amount of left clicking, you just buy this. Every 20 seconds you can cast it on somebody. It disarms them. So for the next 4 seconds they can't fire their gun at all, and then they also have bullet resist debuff, so you can actually do more damage to them within that window. Very, very good. Again, you buy it when there are enemies that need to shoot their guns. Importantly, this will not disable things like Haze ulting. I know it looks like she's shooting her gun. Yes, it scales with gun damage, but that is technically an ability. That's not her firing her weapon, quote unquote. Speaking of, hey look, it's Knockdown. Knockdown is very good. It's a 3200 purple item. Every 35 seconds, you point and click, you cast it on somebody. It applies a stun after 2 seconds, and the stun is 0.5 seconds long, so it's a very short stun. So you think to yourself, okay, why am I going to spend 3200 on a mini stun that I can use like once a fight? What's the point? If you've ever thought to yourself, wow, this 7 just shows up and he pushes his ultimate and he channels it for 7 seconds and I can't play an entire quadrant of the map, buy Knockdown. You cast it on him, he stops halting. This Bebop just runs in and he ults for 7 seconds. I can't fight an entire quadrant of the map. Boom, buy Knockdown. You get him to stop channeling it. Haze, same thing. She's channeling it. Boom, Knockdown. Mini stun applied. She's used her ult now. Other examples. I mean, there are so many times. It's really good into like Vindicta or Grey Talon because they want to fly around and be in the air and not interact with you. Cast this, boom, knockdown. They're on the ground now. Jump them and kill them. I mean, there's just so many reasons why being able to interrupt stuff can be particularly good. So don't sleep on this. Knockdown, very, very good item. Cursed Relic. This was recently reworked, and it's still incredibly good. It's an active, you use it every 55 seconds, and you basically say, fuck that guy, right? Curses an enemy, it interrupts whatever they were in the middle of, so it's kind of like a knockdown in itself. It silences them, it disarms them, and it prevents item usage. So basically the only thing they can use is stamina at that point, because they can't cast abilities, they can't shoot their gun, whatever they were doing is interrupted, and they can't use their items. So the way this was reworked recently is it now gives the player holding it an 8% damage penalty. So I think the wisdom at the moment is that you primarily build this on heroes that are not primary damage dealers but are utility bots. So a character like a Dynamo who really only has to contribute an ult to a fight to win it, or even like Rem, who, you know, he'll spend most of the game attached to, or he'll spend most of the team fight attached to somebody else. He might pop out to ult people or throw a pillow or something like that, but needs other ways to be useful while he's attached to somebody. He'll build a Cursed Relic. He's not doing a tremendous amount of damage anyway. I do think that there probably are some games where if you're getting far enough ahead, you could probably just buy a Cursed Relic and end the game. And even if you take like an 8% damage penalty, okay, now you're doing comparable damage to what their team is doing, again, only if you're like really, really far ahead. So I think this is a good item. It gets even more mileage if there's only like one player on their team that's really doing anything. So yeah, I think it can be quite good. After this, we have Silence Wave and Focus Lens, and I kind of think of these in the same vein because they are both silences. Silence Wave is like a skill shot, so you look in a direction, you push it, it sends out a wave, and anybody that's in it gets silenced for the next 3 seconds. So it can be like a it can be an AoE, like you can hit multiple people with it. But Focus Lens I like more in more situations. So you target an enemy, so it's not a skill shot, you just use it on somebody. It silences them, and I believe, yeah, it silences them for 4 seconds, so that's longer than Silencing Wave. And then it is like a pseudo damage amp, right? So you silence them for 4 seconds, you deal a bunch of damage to them, and then once the silence has concluded, they'll take additional damage as a percentage of the damage they took when they were silenced. So these 2 items, I like using them against a character like a Lady Geist. Lady Geist, you know, she's bouncing around, she's fishing for her ultimate. She gets low, she goes and runs around a corner, she wants you to chase her, and then if you chase her, she just health swaps you and suddenly you're dead. If you just silence her with like a focus lens and then you burst her and then she dies, she can't swap you anymore, right? So both of these can be used in those situations. And again, silence is good in some of the instances where like slowing hex is good. So like late game, if you buy focus lens, you could maybe sell the slowing hex because you maybe don't need to upgrade it to vortex web. And if you see, again, a character like Amina or a Pocket, you can just silence them and then they can't use their abilities to get away anyway, right? So yeah, these can be particularly good. Silence Wave is like a cheaper 3200 alternative. Focus Lens is one that I've been liking more and more, especially post Cursed Relic nerf. because it kind of helps you catch characters like Slowing Hex, and it also helps you tell somebody to shut the fuck up like Cursed Relic, but it amplifies your damage rather than having a damage penalty on it. It doesn't CC them, but they're silenced, they can't use their abilities. So I don't know, it's useful in particular situations, right? All right, up next we have Counterspell. So this is actually the only non-active here. Is that true? Yeah, it's not an active item. It gives you a passive benefit that you kind of have to use actively. So let's just talk about it. Gives you bonus health, gives you a little bit of spirit power. Every 20 seconds, the next parry you do protects you from the damage and effects of enemy abilities and items. On a successful spell parry, it heals you, you gain move speed and spirit. So this is particularly good into comps that have a couple of ultimates that are really heavily telegraphed. So like Rim goes up in the air and he says, "I'm gonna sleep you." Counterspell. Lash goes up and he rings the bell, "I'm about to fuck you up." Boom, counterspell. Anything that's really obvious and telegraphed, I think Counterspell can be quite good. I'll be honest, I'm like a pretty decent player at this point. I don't buy this item a tremendous amount just because even at like my competency level, I'm already kind of bad at parrying melee stuff still. And the idea of like having to parry spells as well scares me. So I don't know if I would recommend this to a new player necessarily, especially when you could cover your bases for this kind of thing in other ways. At the same time, if you're willing to pick this up and like learn how to parry this stuff effectively, I know this is a really powerful item. I see it in my games. I see it particularly in higher level lobbies quite a bit. And it's something that I need to start buying and experimenting with and just getting used to it. But yeah, the idea of having to parry spells every 20 seconds does intimidate me a little bit, I'm not going to lie. After this, Dispel Magic. This item was recently reworked and it is still super good. It's a 3200 item. It gives you 16% spirit resist, which I think is more than Enchanter's Emblem gives you, yeah. It's an active. You can use it every 50 seconds and it just purges non-ultimate negative effects from you. I think, you know, this used to be called debuff remover, and when you think about that, you're like, okay, it purges debuffs. How many debuffs are really in the game? And you can try to think about it and you're like, I don't know if this is really useful. It's super useful because there's a bunch of situations where it gets rid of stuff that you wouldn't have conventionally thought of as a debuff. First things that you would conventionally consider a debuff. Love Bites is about to proc on you, boom, you can dispel that. Infernus has got a dot on you, boom, you can dispel that. Bebop puts a bomb on you, you can dispel that. 7 puts the delayed stun on you, you can dispel that. It just applies in way more situations than you would initially think of. And it also heals you for 250 health when you activate it. So like, frankly, a lot of the time, if you get into a fight and you're losing a little bit of health, you can just push this button and odds are you removed something. You might have removed several things and you healed yourself. So it's just a good item. You will probably undervalue it until you start buying it and you're like, oh, this item fucks. So just worth getting. Warpstone. I struggle. I'm not even sure if this is the right category to put this item, but I couldn't think of another place to put it. Warpstone is just nice on some characters. Really, this might go into that first category of items that make you better. But I do think there are instances where it's good. It provides like 30% bullet resist for 6 seconds, which is quite good. Gives you a little bit of mobility in a fight to help you catch certain things and get in range to use your abilities and that sort of stuff. It can help you move effectively to like get up to rooftops, and maybe you can mount an escape with it. It's a really, really flexible item. You know, if they have something like a Bebop on the team, something that is like kind of telegraphed like a hook, you can use it and, you know, sidestep that. You could sidestep like a Grey Talon one. You could sidestep, you know, there's just stuff where you need to break line of sight quickly, and Warpstone can be quite good at that. So not sure if this is the right category for it, but it's a good active item. You should consider it sometimes. And then Capacitor, which is like the only orange item here, actually. The only And what is this category even called? I play so few of these characters. Weapon. The only weapon item. Very cool. It gives you some fire rate passive. It's basically an extension of Tesla bullets, which means that you get like the electricity that bounces around and reflects off of different targets. As an active every 40 seconds, you launch a projectile, and this is a skill shot, that deals damage to whoever it hits and applies a strong slow and prevents them from using stamina and silences their movement-based abilities. So this is kind of like a 6400 end-game gun carry version of a slowing hex, right? Where you can use it on people you just don't want to move, and then you shoot them with your gun and they die. You use it in all the same situations that you would use a slowing hex. You want Mina to stop moving, you want Pocket to stop moving, you want Shiv to stop moving. Yeah, characters that move around a lot with their abilities, you use this on them, they can't do that anymore. So yep, that's it. So I feel like maybe I should have led with this, but there's probably a conversation to be had about like, when do you deviate from your build to buy one of these things? And I'll try to talk about that to the best of my ability. It's too nuanced to ultimately be able to give you all of the information you need in like a single video, but I'll just try to give you my frame of mind when I'm making these decisions, and you can run with that, do what you want to. So from my perspective, when you are ahead, and I'm talking about as a character and kind of as a team, but really you as an individual, when you're ahead and when you're doing well, the only thing that can fuck that up is throwing the lead. Basically, if somebody picks you off and you die. So when you're ahead, let's say you're like 6-1, like you're getting plenty of kills, you're up on souls, you're feeling pretty strong, you're able to fight the enemy team. That is a good time to build a defensive item, because again, the only thing that's going to mess that up for you is getting picked off and dying. And you're already ahead, you're already doing enough damage to kill people. Just go ahead and buy a defensive item. Conversely, if you're losing, if you're like, I don't know, 1-5 or something like that, you're falling a little bit behind in souls. Your play pattern might need to change to be able to give you some more farm to get back into the game. But I would argue when you are farming and when you're buying items, at that point, you want to prioritize things that would make your heroes stronger in that sort of first category that we talked about, not as much, because it's the opposite, right? The only way that you're going to get back into that game is by getting some kills and getting picks and whatnot, right? So buy items that make you stronger when you're weak, and buy items that basically like secure your lead when you're already ahead, is the way that I think about it. When do you buy sort of this problem solver category of item? Basically, when you identify that a problem is happening. So in the laning phase, you kind of can't do much about it. You'll just like buy some sustain items, buy some resistance items, and buy items that make you stronger so that you can play in the lane and get the most out of it. But once you hit that sort of like 8 to 16 minute mark where the play patterns are going to start condensing the players, and there's going to be like 3 people in a lane, 4 people in a lane, you know, you're moving around, you're pushing different objectives, stuff like that. At that point, you might need to start looking at the enemy team and say like, okay, my lane came out okay, but there's a haze on the enemy team that is 6-1 right now. It's probably worth it to buy Disarming Hex real quick, just so that if I run into her, I can shut her down, and then hopefully that'll be enough for us to win a team fight. Or like the enemy Mina is starting to get ahead, I'll just go ahead and buy a slowing hex so that if we run into it, then we can do something about that. Oh, the 7 is getting kind of far ahead, I'll just go ahead and buy a knockdown so that if he ults in a fight, I can stop that from happening, right? Like, as you're hitting that mid game, you want to start looking at the enemy team and deciding like, okay, who are the biggest problem actors and what are the items that fuck up them the most, right? So like, if the 2 characters are for the example, Mina and Lady Geist, and I know I've talked about Mina a lot because Mina's a problem, but if the 2 characters are like Mina and Lady Geist, I probably don't buy Slowing Hex at that point, because Slowing Hex only solves the Mina problem. I would probably buy Focus Lens, because Focus Lens could solve both the Mina problem and the Ladygeist problem, right? So you're looking at the enemy team, you're trying to figure out which of the characters are coming out of that laning phase strong, and then which item could I buy that would efficiently deal with as many of those problem characters as possible, and then just kind of trying to buy that. The last thing I'll say is that there is this concept of investment spikes. So if you look, if I hover this, and I can't point to it with my cursor, but you'll see next to Spirit Investment, there's a little star next to that 4.8K. And that's because the 4.8K investment gives you disproportionately more stats than any other tier in this investment category, right? So typically this will consist of a tier 2 item and a tier 3 item, because that's 1600 souls plus 3200 souls is 4.8K. This could also be 3 tier 2 items in the same category. So 1600 plus 1600 plus 1600 is also 4.8K. And if you have a couple of tier 1s, like you say you have 2 800 items, those could basically be a 1600 item. You could just buy a 3200, or you could buy 2 other 1600s, and then you get to that investment spike. Once you hit that investment spike, there is a window that opens up where you are more willing to deviate from that category, that broader category of item, being in this case spirit, vitality, and gun damage or weapon investment. So like, you might be in lane, you're like, okay, I'm really trying to hit this 4.8 spirit spike. As soon as you hit it, boom, you're going to start getting you're going to start getting less out of those spirit investments as time goes on at that point. So it's worth it to stop and look and be like, okay, I've gotten my spirit spike. What kind of damage am I taking? Okay, let's start building vitality in that direction. You know, looking at my team comp and being like, okay, do we have enough weapon damage? If we don't have very much weapon damage, then maybe I'll go and get a 4.8K spike in gun damage, just so that I can contribute in that way, as opposed to like just nobody on the team being able to deal any gun damage and then them being able to mitigate very linearly against everybody on your team, right? So I don't know. Think about the investment spikes. Be willing to deviate at that 4.8K mark. As you're entering the mid game, build items to proactively solve the issues that are starting to crop up on the enemy team, and just in general buy resistances that make sense in lane, particularly as your 800 and 1600 items, and then as you're moving into the mid and late game, things that make sense in the broader context of the match. If they're all spirit damage, build some spirit resilience, build Spellbreaker. You can probably survive most things. And please, for the love of God, please have a source of healing reduction. Please, please, please. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. See you in the next one. Peace.